Hi there and welcome to AXSChat. I'm delighted to welcome James Rath. James is a filmmaker and has a YouTube channel and also contributes to Huffington Post and a number of other things like I Clarified, and has been featured in Mac Stories, and also some of his work is actually featured by Apple themselves. So delighted to have you with us, James. I know that um, you've been doing a lot of work around accessible video. Tell us a bit about your story and how you came to start working in filmmaking.
Yeah, so I'm legally blind, and I was born with ocular albinism and nystagmus. So I've had like non-correctable vision basically my whole life. There was a time when I had experimental surgery, but that didn't last long. The results of that, and I always found that like video cameras and filmmaking was very accessible medium in terms of the functionality of zooming in and focus and doing all that through a viewfinder. Basically, having this large magnification, being able to just create uh, create stories and have really this barrier kind of broken down between me and needing accessibility, whether it's intentional or not by the manufacturers. It was something that I discovered and kind of fell in love with as a child. So I've been kind of making movies my entire life, and then using YouTube as sort of this platform to sort of just post my videos. And within the last year is when I really uh, sort of got into this format of doing some documentaries, accessible videos, videos on the topics of disabilities, mental health, and accessibility. And uh, yeah, so that's sort of where it's kind of started. It started about a year ago after sort of trying to find a niche, and yeah, so
So, and I think most of us fall into this niche or niche, as we'll say in England, through some kind of personal connection. So for me, I came to it through dyslexia and my family and my personal experience. Um, Deborah with her daughter. So I think we're all motivated to, strongly motivated to work in the field. But and we all have that kind of light bulb moment when we discover that technology enables us to do stuff that so much more easily than
yeah,
previously. Yeah, so I mean, I'm old enough to have not grown up with computers. So for my, well, I did have one as a kid, but it had a green screen monitor and you load the games by tape, and it makes screeching noises for 15 minutes as it loaded up Football Manager. Um, Not really sort of your day-to-day usage stuff. So I kind of left it behind. So when you said you were using cameras and your viewfinders, were you sort of just sort of wedded to your camera? Were you sort of just wandering around filming stuff, and the fact that you could zoom in just made life a whole bunch easier, or were you aware of assistive tech as well, but you just found consumer tech easier?
yeah, I was aware of assistive technology. I think the assistive technology that I had as a kid were those large CCTVs where big monitor plugged in, and then I could put stuff under. And I thought that was cool. It allowed me to sort of draw because I did love drawing as a kid. I would sometimes, depending on the CCTV model, it'd be hard to sort of like write underneath of it. If there was a lot of like space to fit that, but um, I just it was the portability of a camera, I think, that sort of led me to that. There's like magnifying glasses that I had and stuff, but um, that was really just for reading more so, or trying to make something out. Uh, but yeah, just assume consumer technology of video cameras unintentionally being inaccessible for my field of vision was really like it just grabbed my attention, and I was sort of creating little short films as a kid with it because I just liked creating stories and telling stories and stuff. So that's what sort of led me to that.
Okay. And how do you find YouTube as a platform? Because obviously they made some efforts towards accessibility in terms of captioning for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but it's still not not a platform that supports audio description in the same way. So is that something that how do you deal with the fact that that it's only accessible in maybe one dimension, and what do you do with your filmmaking to try and get around that?
Yeah. So I try to take extra time, for example, with like when I'm doing short films with audio when it comes to like sound effects and clarity with that. But YouTube just right now is not supporting audio descriptions, and something may be in the works right now. And I've heard back from YouTube engineers and stuff, but nothing confirmed until I guess they're ready to confirm. Um, but yeah, like online services like Netflix have been able to enable it and get it down perfectly. Where if you're just watching a show that supports 80, you can just enable it, and it will just be an extra layer of audio that plays on top of your movie or your TV show, and it's been great. I've really loved to uh, watch movies now with AD. Uh, Audio descriptions are something that I actually discovered probably about a year ago, and have just really piqued my interest. And I just wondered why YouTube didn't really support this kind of feature. It doesn't seem too hard to sort of implement, but I think it was just more of an afterthought or an oversight. Um, just not a big demand for it, and um, it's YouTube does support closed captions, which I think is great, but they are run by Google. That's the parent company, or I guess Alphabet technically is the biggest
Sure.
company, sure. But yeah, um, Google's about accessibility for sure. They have Android, which is a very accessible platform and has all these zooming and voiceover like features. So um, I think it's time that we make YouTube more accessible to the blind. So hopefully we can see that by sometime next year. And yeah, I personally sometimes if there's something I can't see or make out in a video, I'm lucky enough to have my Apple products that can easily just kind of zoom in right there on the spot if I need to zoom into something. But not everyone has that luxury with the operating system that they're using or platform that they're on. So having supported audio descriptions on YouTube's platform is just seems like it to be a must because you never know what platform the other person's on the user on the other end. So
So yeah, we featured one of the top guys in audio description, Joel Snyder, a while back. He's basically written the book on how to do audio description. So and also spent a lot of time working with the BBC, and they do a lot of audio description. It's seamless when it works really well. It's fantastic, and I'm not blind, and I'll still use it in certain circumstances when I can't give the TV or the movie my full attention. I can listen in and not lose track. So I think it's that wider applicability, and I think that the reason perhaps that you don't see um, audio description as a feature is probably due to and I say ignorance, but I'm using it not in a bad way. I'm talking about the fact that people just weren't aware, lack of awareness, because people when they think about blindness, they're not thinking about low vision. You say you're legally blind, people think you can't see. That's not true. You have limited vision. So the assumption is blind people don't watch movies. Well, even totally blind people watch movies. Look at Tommy Edison, for example. But there's that assumption there, and it's great what you're doing because it helps to challenge that assumption. I know Antonio's got a question, so I'll shut up now.
No, because we were able to see, Google or Facebook, we both like to focus on artificial in virtual reality and in 360 degrees cameras. They have all teams working on that. Uh, have you done any research? How you think that will change or help you to do what you are already doing?
360 video specifically.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, 360 video from a consumer standpoint, from a person who's visually impaired. Um, the problem right now with the consumer 360 video cameras are that they're pretty low res. They're pretty low quality. It's like they claim to be like 4K, but they are 4K. They have these 4,000 pixels, but it's completely stretched and everything. So in reality, it comes down to like 720 when you're actually viewing what you can view at a time. And so right now, I feel like 360 video, maybe in a year or two, it's going to catch up with like high resolution. I know Facebook has actually been, when you actually watch it in full HD, it looks pretty good from Facebook's official, but I don't know what cameras. They probably have these large, great like 4K rigs that are, professional, high-end 360 cameras, which are very expensive right now. So as the price comes down for those things and it becomes more accessible to filmmakers, and I think it'd be easier for people who have low vision to enjoy that kind of content. Because I know one thing that I'm doing constantly whenever I'm watching a 360 video is zooming in with my Mac to see like what's in the background, what's coming up into the foreground, and so not only am I moving the camera around, like on desktop, for example, but that's something I really can't do when I'm on mobile, like using my phone as like a. I mean, I can technically do it, but if you have this virtual reality headset, you don't really have that option to zoom into your screen using those accessibility features. So visually, I think it's just not there yet for it to be accessible. And then from the audio description standpoint of that, that's a good question. I've never seen a video with audio descriptions that is 360, and I'd be curious to sort of understand how that would work, if it can work. It would probably depend on a project-by-project basis, because where some 360 videos are very gimmicky and have all this stuff going on, and you can pay attention to like several different things, maybe one that's just so happens to be 360 but has like one thing going on, it can sort of help with that. But yeah, from a filmmaking standpoint, I'm very interested in it, and I've expressed interest to some of my other connections and management, and I think I will be possibly working on a 360 video, my first one, in the next few months here. And it will have to do, I'm not going to kind of say exactly what it is, but it'll have to do with kind of bringing awareness to legal blindness and stuff, and in a way that's much more immersive than a lot of experiences today.
So so going a little bit away from the technical points, what is actually driving your stories at the moment?
Towards 360 video specifically?
No, in general.
Sorry, could you rephrase that question one more time?
What is driving your stories when you are telling a story?
Oh.
What is your main focus on, an area that you are basically interested on?
So for me specifically, like for my stories and videos, I'm doing a lot of things like documentaries and just kind of wanting to share my story, but then also allow the opportunity for people to sort of be aware of that there are people who are visually impaired on YouTube, people who are legally blind and wanting to sort of like watch along with everyone else. And so that's one thing that's kind of pushing me towards like pushing for audio descriptions right now on YouTube, and that's been kind of a campaign I've been trying to get going, just to bring awareness to other mainstream creators, because having your videos accessible is important, because that's a huge audience that can open up. Because audio descriptions not only help the blind, but it also helps people with cognitive disabilities who may have a harder time sort of following what's happening from a visual standpoint, even if they can see it all happening. And you never know when you're gonna like lose your vision, and so I mention that a lot in some of my videos, especially regarding audio descriptions, because vision is sort of this privilege that most people are born with, and you could lose it from a disease, freak accident, old age. You never know, and you can't really take your vision for granted. So I know personally I would want my content that I create to be accessible to myself when I'm older. If I do lose more vision, if I go completely blind someday, I would just like to go back and watch some of my old content and also be able to enjoy current content with. So that's what's sort of driving me to push for accessibility in the like entertainment world and in my content.
So and you upload quite a lot. I mean, you're frequent. You do 2 videos a week. That's quite prolific.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, and I can see you've got a whole bunch of stuff, also including the fact that you're a Pokemon master.
Yeah. That's it's a hobby. I don't play many video games nowadays because video games aren't very accessible to me. The majority, like Call of Duty, I can't really just like see what's happening. Every time I play, I'll just not know when someone's around because everyone's camouflage. But Pokemon's one of those games that is pretty accessible, and I enjoy it because it's like a turn-based RPG where you can take your time with each thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm rubbish at first-person shooters too. I get disoriented and get killed straight away.
Yeah.
So,
There is one shooter I've been playing, been enjoying it a lot because it is somewhat accessible, and it's from Nintendo. It's called Splatoon. It's like a platformer and third-person shooter that is a territory kind of game where you play as this like humanoid who can also turn into a squid, and you can shoot ink. Basically, it's like paintball, and you're trying to cover the entire map with your color ink, and your team's trying to out ink the other team. And you can swim in the ink and everything, but the ink are two defined colors, so it's a lot easier to see that game for me personally. And if you're colorblind, they do have an option to make it like two static colors, so it doesn't change. And so I've been enjoying that.
no, that's cool. I find that it's quite interesting to see how many people with disabilities spend a lot of time gaming, and not so much also for the gaming, but for the communities that you often find around the games, which is underappreciated. So tell us a little bit about the equipment that you're using, because from what I can see, it's not your cheap and cheerful iPhone camera.
Well, ironically, I did shoot my last video on an iPhone and iPad, just to kind of show that like it was a video about accessibility and how I use my phone in like everyday scenarios, like as my eyes when I'm like out and about. And I shot every time that I had like the iPhone as a prop, basically. I was actually recording sort of what was in front of me from a first-person perspective, and then I was shooting the rest on an iPad that had the same exact camera, the new iPad Pro, just to kind of show that you can still create high-quality videos using these devices. But normally I do shoot on a Blackmagic Cinema camera, which is much higher-end camera that big indie film productions use, some TV shows use and stuff. And it does offer some accessibility features for me where I can double tap to zoom into like my subject or whatever is in the viewfinder, and then I can also enable a feature called focus peaking that highlights in bright green everything that's in focus at the moment, and then as I change the focus, it'll highlight things that are in the background and foreground, which is super useful for me when I can't quite make out everything that's in focus on the 5-inch screen. So that's what I currently use video-wise, and then I have all these like lights and stuff behind me, and I have a Canon G7X. I used to have a Canon DSLR, but I gave that to my brother. But I have the G7X point and shoot. It's just to like pull out if I'm like want to shoot a higher quality video, than just what's on my iPhone for when I'm out and about or on the go.
Okay.
So yeah.
As a consumer, you are exposed. We are all, and you, as we're all exposed to videos that are being made by brands to try to capture our attention. Now, most of those videos they have no accessibility. Don't know. They sometimes the brands don't even consider that. Do you think that have you learned something from your experience that can help brands and advertisers to look at their videos in a way that you know that they can use some of the work that you did and some of the things that you are trying to experience that can help them to make all those videos more accessible?
Absolutely. And I mean, depends where the platform is, like that these brands are hosting their advertisements on. I mean, for YouTube, if they could add audio descriptions to their ads, their video ads, the pre-roll ones, it'd be nice if, just say for instance, like YouTube would have to add that feature, obviously, first and foremost. But if they considered using that, because then they can just grab the attention, like they don't have people ignoring their ad, more so. And even that, having audio descriptions, even if it's like simple ones for an ad, that may also capture the attention of someone who is sighted, who's just like, oh, it's an ad, just gonna ignore it. Then they hear like a small description of what's going on, and it's like, what is this? So they might kind of pick up on that. But also, it's just important to use like specific colors and stuff. Like, don't use like yellow colored font. That's irritating to me personally to see. And just little simple like do's and don'ts for when you're doing colors and lighting and stuff, just to make it like more accessible to loss of sight people. So
Yeah, I think there are video players out there that enable you to set all of your captioning colors and everything else, but they're not mainstream. So
well, YouTube does allow that too.
we're in.
Yeah. In YouTube's player, I have it so like my text is at like 200% size, so that I can make out the text a lot easier and white on black.
That's pretty cool. So
You might have to be logged into an account though to do that, just so it saves the settings.
yeah. So but I'm trying to think of the actual player that it's. There's an accessible media player which has a whole gamut of accessibility features. It's got the all of the user options. It's got closed captioning. It's got audio description and all of this kind of stuff. The difficulty that they're now facing is sort of you ended up with this user interface that's just full of buttons. that they're now actually having discussions about how do we slimline this and keep all of the accessibility features in. So I think it's really important to allow people to customize it, but there are challenges to how we go about creating those interfaces, because you mentioned before people with cognitive difficulties, me being one, and actually that's user interfaces are a daily adventure in trying to remember what button to press and where to find stuff. So do you lay everything out and then overwhelm someone, or do you find a way of minimizing it and create a path down which to make it obvious that people need to travel to get to those features? So we talked about potential 360 video project. Anything else that's coming up that's exciting that you want to share with us and our audience?
Yeah, I got a lot of things currently in the works. I have a big project sort of in the works right now. I've been personally kind of like annoyed a little bit at how Hollywood sort of treats disabilities in media and stuff, whether it be physical or visual or hearing disabilities. And oftentimes they're either just like a plot device or not written accurately, and really that comes down to the people in the writing room. The people who are in the writing room more than likely don't have these disabilities, and they're just sort of basing it off research or how they want to see fit for the character, and it just kind of gives like poor stereotypes and representation. It's the same thing, comes down to the same thing with religion and race and sexual orientations and just several different factors. And so I am currently working on a pilot TV show in the pre-production of that. Whether it's going to be on TV or not is sort of up in the air because the first and foremost I got to make the pilot, but it sort of center around giving accurate representation of legal blindness, at least in the pilot. But I did want to sort of dive into other disabilities and get other people and media people involved. And so I'm not going to talk too much in detail about it since it's very kind of like early right now. But hopefully I'll have a finalized like pilot by the end of the year. The goal is to start shooting around August to September, and looking for funding right now for that, which I think we're almost set to go. But yeah, I'm excited about that. That's going to be a big one that might consume a lot of my time in this next year. And then, so the goal for that is to create the good pilot and then move along to possible distributors or more funding or something to kind of get a whole season going and platform for it. And as well as like YouTube weekly doing different collaborations coming up because I have VidCon, which is a annual video convention, and this is the first time I'm a guest. I'm a speaker there, so that's going to be exciting, and I get to meet other creators who have disabilities. I know some, and I know some through Twitter and YouTube networking, but we're all like meeting for the first time, which is going to be a lot of fun because we got like 2-3 panels this year. So
I know that will be fun, and it's always great to swap ideas in person, and so I'm sure you'll really enjoy that. Do you know Kurt Yeager? He's been Sons of Anarchy and so on. Been in another couple of series. We interviewed him, I guess, about a year ago now. And he's based in LA. He's an actor. He's below the knee amputee. He's also a BMX rider. But he's also, it was one of the topics that we were talking about was the portrayal of people with disabilities in the media, and it keeps recurring. Everybody that we interview keeps coming back to this fact that the portrayals aren't accurate, or there's a degree of tokenism. Yeah, we've ticked the box. There's a disabled person. They're just in the background there, just keep them up. Whereas what we really want is people with disabilities playing roles that the role is the role, not the role focused on their disability. So I think there's anything that you can do to further that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's sort of the plan. I mean, I was very inspired by I have a lot of friends in the Asian American community out here in LA and in the YouTube community as well, and they were celebrating Asian Pacific Heritage Month, and so YouTube hosted this big event at their studios, the YouTube space, and so I went out with a couple friends of mine to that, and they were talking about the need for people to kind of get into the writer's room, for people to take the producing spots, for people in the community to need to get behind the camera in order to create these roles and create these accurate representations of their people on camera, and stop being the best friend, or stop being the supporting character who supports the common white girl actress, and even if they're not as good at acting as the best friend supporting Asian actress. So it's really, and again, stereotypes are a huge problem. I mean, it's dangerous sometimes when you're sort of exaggerating a stereotype on camera, and people who have never really interacted with someone with that disability sees that specific media, and now in their head they think, oh, so that's how it is, and it, not intentionally, but sometimes then that person who's, say able-bodied, meets someone who has that disability, they could come off saying something ignorant or possibly offensive by what they said in that film. So
Okay. So, what other things we've talked about audio description, we've talked about sort of customization and so on. What other things and technologies excite you right now, and what other things do you use as enabling tech in your day-to-day life? I know you're talking about, you've got pinch and zoom and stuff on your iOS devices. What other bits of kit have you got lying around that you use regularly? Or that excite you? What's on your shopping list?
well, it might be a few years off, but self-driving cars they're coming. They're a thing right now. I'm very interested in them. It's going to come down though to regulations in the law, whether or not people of low vision are going to be able to ride them. As far as reports go, I mean, they've had very few to none accidents with testing, and it seems that the cars are smarter at driving than humans. So the problem is, I think, humans having to adapt to self-driving cars. Some people just want full control of their car, and you just hope that those people are good drivers, and that the self-driving cars will be able to adapt to that. So that's something that I find very exciting. Drones as well, from a filmmaking standpoint. I saw this. This is pretty neat, but it's not out on the market yet. But a pair of virtual reality a headset basically that you put on, and you can basically hook it up to your iPhone or your iPad, while you also have your Phantom drone hooked up to your phone and iPad. And as you film your drone, you can see everything that's happening in a first-person perspective, right on the drone's camera. And if you're using like a Phantom 4 or something that's pretty accessible like that, I would say, I think the Phantom 4 is very accessible because you can sort of just map out a trail on your phone, and even if I can't see it in the sky, I know that's right there, and I can see the video feed. And if it's getting too far away, I can hit a send home, and it'll automatically just come back to me. So I'm very excited about using drones soon. That's something I'm looking into right now, and hopefully we'll be incorporating into my own work soon. And but yeah, just a lot of cool innovations. I would say more so gimmicks right now happening with film, but I think they're going to be good gimmicks and could lead to some pretty interesting things. And in terms of just other technology, wearable technology is one that I'm kind of excited for, to see like where it's going to go. Like I have an Apple Watch right now, and I find it helpful when I'm like out in the streets, and if I need to turn left or right, what it does is just tap my wrist. I believe it's 6 times, or maybe it's 3 times for left, and then it does like a rapid 6 or 12 taps for to go right. And just not like having a long sleeve shirt and having like a map set up and just being told where to go by just taps, which is nice. So I don't ever have to like have my watch really out or look at it.
Yeah.
I think it's very helpful, and I'm excited to see where wearable technology could go. I do have a pair of Google glasses, the Google Glass. I know that product has sort of died down, but I think like having a pair of glasses with a HUD, and a camera, like if it was a super high res camera, like a 4K camera, just having sort of like how I use my phone to like just kind of see through the viewfinder. to look at science and stuff from a distance. If there's a way where I could just kind of zoom in through the glasses, I think that'd be really neat. And there was a product called eSight. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I tried that out and did a video on it where it allowed me to, kind of like how I do with my Mac or my phone, essentially just kind of zoom into the image of what I'm seeing, what my eyes are normally seeing. And it was really neat because you could adjust like the contrast and make it black or white or all these other like focus features. But it was really cool because I was able to, I did like a vision test, and normally my vision's like 2200 to 2250, and I was able to see 2020 and even 2016 for reading, which is pretty incredible when I had those on.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I know there's a couple of companies that are developing similar glasses in the UK, and they're developing things with optical character recognition in them as well. So they'll, in theory, they should be able to recognize the number of the bus and the destination.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure it's accurate because you don't want to go to the wrong place.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done that before.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that there's enormous potential. And when we interviewed the guys from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, they were quite optimistic about how soon it would be for autonomous vehicles. So I think that there's a lot of people in the blind and low vision community that are very super excited about the independence that they'll gain from autonomous vehicles and self-driving cars. So, and I don't think it's as far away as all that. You're right. I think it's more about legislation and people's attitudes than it is about the technology now, because they're pretty well developed. I think we've reached the end of our half hour. I think it's been a fantastic chat. So thank you very much, James.
Cool. Thank you so much.
No, I before you go, I just wanted to, I'm curious just in relation to one very specific thing.
Sure.
We see so many videos, people talking about Snapchat, Facebook, comparing Facebook with YouTube and all that. How do you cope with the social media activity from your friends when they all jump into Snapchat and other solutions? How do you cope with that? Just in a fair short answer, if you can.
Yeah. Well, as a content creator and having to market yourself, you need to be up to date with like the majority of these platforms. Personally, this is another story, but like I just don't think Snapchat's all that accessible right now. It's not. They did release a new app, which I think I saw people complaining about it, but it runs a lot smoother than it ever has for me before. And I'm on the latest iPhone, and so it's a lot less like laggy, which is nice. But it's hard for me personally to like pay attention to people's Snapchats or try to read them because the feature is they disappear. They're self-destructing. Where sometimes I need to go back. I need to be able to zoom in, see the text, or so sometimes my friends will be like, "Did you just screenshot my Snapchat?" I'm like, "Yes, only so I can zoom in, read what you were trying to say, and then delete your Snapchat after that because I don't need it. I know what it says." But that Snapchat hopefully needs to do something for that. But yeah, Facebook is definitely trying to create a premier video platform with like incorporate into their news feed and everything. And they've been somewhat successful, very successful with making things go viral. But the problem is a lot of the videos that are on Facebook right now are stolen videos, re-uploaded and not by the original content creator, and other people are profiting off of that with getting all these likes and shares. And so hopefully Facebook can incorporate some sort of new way content ID system properly that will have less of these stolen videos circulating. But problem is Facebook's sort of profiting from that right now with their own ads. So we'll see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks again, James. It's been great
No
speaking to
problem.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.